Education, May 19, 2014. Mr. Tapper, if you please call roll.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Here.
Dr. Heiss.
Here.
Mr. Hamelgarn.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Fruman.
Here, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the exits, in case I'm wrong, over that way where you came in, and then another one over on this side. Any I've missed? No, that's it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes.
Mr. Hamelgarn.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes. Well, welcome back. Those of you who were with us last night on Sunday had the opportunity to listen to Dr. Jackson's presentation on the facility options. I thought he did a great job. It's very informative, and it's something that's available online now, isn't it? So if you weren't with us last night, or if you were and you care to get a copy of that, it's available online. Just check the district website. What we're trying to do is work towards 2 and maybe 3 options, which we then like to submit as part of a community survey to be run by Mr. John Fox and his company. He's a marketing consultant, and when we concluded our talk last night, or at least where I believe we are, and I'm sure my fellow board members will correct me if I'm wrong, at this point, with all the discussion we've had and looking at the various cost considerations of the various options, particularly as outlined to us last night by Dr. Jackson, we've eliminated any one high school plan. The cost of building one high school is just simply prohibitive. And we've eliminated any 2 middle school plans for much the same reason. And where we are right now is we're trying to discuss whether we want to go with an OFCC approved facilities plan and a cost commensurate with that type of plan, or one that doesn't necessarily meet all of the OFCC standards, more of a renovate to new program. There's obviously different considerations in those two. The other thing we're still looking at is the consideration or possibility of some consolidation at the elementary school level, whether it's 4, 5, or 6 elementaries. And in that discussion, we are also still considering whether the plan, and that would be one approved by OFCC, would include 4 new elementary schools. So I think that's where we are now. What we're hoping to do is get to 2 or possibly 3 plans that would be subject to the survey. And when we talked last night, at least at the time of the break, there were a lot of questions regarding what that survey would do and what it would mean and how it would be done. So with us tonight is Mr. John Fox, and I'm going to turn this over to you, and you didn't know that. If you care to make opening remarks, that's great, but otherwise I think the board has a lot of questions about what that survey would look like and what it would do for us. I'd also like to remind the board that Joe Kunkel of SSOE is also here tonight. He's available for any questions you have regarding any of the information that was shared with us last night by Dr. Jackson. With that, Mr. Fox.
Yeah, let me start, and I'm going to go through.
Wait, you
mics. Okay.
That way you can be.
I have a loud voice, but
Right over there.
even better.
Thanks.
No problem.
There we go.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let me start. I do have an outline of some points to make, and then if that doesn't answer all of your questions, anybody can feel free to ask. Just a little bit about my background. I've been in the marketing research business for over 25 years. I'm a former Procter & Gamble brand manager, worked for an advertising agency, and everything I really do is marketing oriented. Just a little bit of history. I do all types of marketing research, and about 15 years ago, a niche in the area of school bond issue and school tax levy research kind of fell into my lap, really kind of accidentally, because I was doing it on a volunteer basis in the Wyoming district where I live. And about 5 years ago, having done several studies for Wyoming, I thought, well, maybe I can do some help for other districts. And since that time, Forest Hills would be my 11th district that I've done work with. 6 in the greater Cincinnati area, and 3 or 4 up in Northeast Ohio, as well as Forest Hills now. The research study is very distinct from the type of research that maybe you've done before, and I know you've done a study here. A lot of studies do polling. This really is true marketing research, coming from my background as a marketer and as a marketing researcher. And of course, the main objective of a study like this is really to be predictable, and as predictable as possible. And when we've done these in Wyoming, every time we've done a study on the main question, it's come in within 1 or 2 percentage points of where the actual vote came in. In the case where it comes in well under 50% on the key question, I will advise a district not to go ahead. And if a research study tells you not to go ahead, it's even more valuable than if it does tell you to go ahead. So the study is really used for a go, no-go decision, but it's especially helpful in a case like yours where you have multiple options. So if you end up with 2 or even 3 options, hopefully not 6 or something like that, you really can use the research to sort out the options. And the nice thing about this is that this ends up telling the public, this is what you wanted. This isn't what we, the board, or we, the school administration, want. We're not trying to push this down your throats. We gave you several options, and this is the one that you chose as most viable, the most likely to pass, the one you would be most likely to vote for. And more importantly, you told us why. And that's really the second key objective. The go, no-go decision, and evaluating the options and their various costs, of course. But then from a marketing standpoint, uncovering all the points that will help you pass the bond issue or the tax levy. So marketing research is distinct from polling. What we get in reaction to the main question is not, here are several different options, are you in favor of them or not, but also in your own words, why or why not. And that's the first thing we get. In the research business, we call that unaided. So we get, in their own words, the reasons why they would be for something or against it. We then test any hypotheses that you have in the district on why people would vote for or against it. So in case they forgot something, we've covered every possible issue. We then also test the various selling points that you can use to pass the bond issue, whether it's, this is good for the future of the schools, or in your case, 8 out of 9 of our schools have been deemed by the state to be unacceptable, or any other possible selling points. We test all of those. We also test the community's awareness of the various selling points as well as the various hypotheses, so that your public relations and communications people can put together an appropriate communications plan that will address the points that have been deemed important by them and the ones particularly where they need a lot of awareness because they're not aware of what's going on. We also test how to best reach them. Is it by media? Is it the Forest Hills Journal? Is it the school mailings? Is it by email? Is it the website? And we get a prioritization of the best ways to reach them as well. So really all in the spirit of marketing, we uncover the reasons why they might vote for or against it. You tout the positives, you address the negatives, you emphasize the selling points that are important to them, you really cover the areas that lack awareness, and you reach them via the right means of communications. We also uncover demographics, and we look at this every which way. Typically, in districts, more than 60% of a district are empty nesters without kids in the school, sometimes as much as 70%. We all know those are people most likely to vote against a tax levy or a bond issue. And we look at the results of the research by age, by how long they've lived in the district, by gender, by geographic area, and that as well helps you determine how to best get this passed. In the end, you really have to get people to the polls, and you have to get the younger people to the polls to outvote the older people who are more likely to vote against it. Now, with this younger-older thing in mind, let me talk a little bit about the methodology and how we are implementing this. In the past, up until about a year ago, this literally was the last type of study that I ever did using the telephone. Online research has really become the norm in the marketing research industry. Yet, for a study like this, because of needing to reach the older people and because they would be underrepresented by an entire online study, this is still a study that we do via telephone. I've done it totally via telephone in many districts, but recently another issue has come up, which is, well, a lot of people don't have landlines anymore, and we don't know cell phone numbers, so how are we going to reach them? Okay. I've had some districts that have done it totally by phone. I've had other districts on tight budgets that have just done it totally online, and I've warned them you're underrepresenting the older people, but they take their chances. But now what we're doing is a hybrid version, where approximately 2/3 of the interviews are done via telephone, and 1/3 of the interviews are done online. So we get enough of the older people and enough of the people who may not have landlines, and that balances it out nicely. As it stands right now, if everything moves according to plan, the online portion could be up as soon as Friday. I think you've even got something on your website saying that. And the telephone interviewing would start a week from tomorrow after Memorial Day. So that's really the objectives and the methodology that we're planning, and I will now open it up to any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
The one thing that you say that it will accomplish is you test the awareness of various selling points. Here's what concerns me. If someone is asked their opinion on one of two or one of three plans, but they're not really aware of they don't have a lot of information about the plans, and it's just a knee-jerk reaction to cost. How can that be something valid that we can rely on? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
If they're not aware of the selling points and
And-
we're educating them on the selling points, how can they give a valid response?
Yeah, and we do in the research lay out as detailed as possible a concept statement that you will help us write, describing not just, we're going to have 4 elementary schools and it's going to cost X million dollars, but, all of the other details of that plan, including what I kind of call the or else factors. If the bond issue fails, then we would need repairs and maintenance and that sort of those sort of services totaling even a different dollar amount. So we lay out as detailed a concept statement as we possibly can. Is it predictable such that when they go into the voting booth and they see the extremely detailed but also extremely complicated, if anybody voted a couple of weeks ago and some of those things, I don't know. They would certainly have more details between now and Election Day and on Election Day. But we do the best we can with a detailed concept statement. And as I said, we get both the view in their own words, and then we test all of the different components of it, including the or else factors, and including things having to do with education versus just facilities and everything else. And it's better than what you have now, which is guessing, should we put this on the ballot, is it going to pass?
Is there any scientific reliability to this study?
There's a ton of scientific.
Well, I've heard you have scientific and non-scientific studies. This is a scientific.
This is a quantitative study. We're going to do 500 completed interviews. And interestingly, when we do 500 completed interviews, we will probably get 1,000 completed interviews online, and you'll have even more statistical reliability. We'll only take a random sample of that, but this is highly statistically.
What's your confidence interval? What's your confidence interval?
A sample size of 500 is about plus or minus 4%, I believe.
On the online survey, how do you control?
Stacking.
There you go.
One response per computer. I guess if somebody wants to go around to other computers, it's not going to happen. It is one response per computer.
Timing-wise,
to Julie's point, and to actually your point too, is as we get closer to the election day, more information will come out. Right now, we've had 2 months of information, or 6 weeks of information, although a lot of this information we got yesterday. Timing-wise, now granted, we have some other dates coming up though that decisions have to be made. Do you find that, I have a feeling that a survey done 6 weeks ago would have been very different than a survey done now, and then 6 weeks from now. Not that we wait that long, but what are your feelings on
Well,
that?
yeah, and one reason why we want to do it now is we want to get it in and out of interviewing as close to before school ends as possible, when people's minds are on school, when they're not on vacation. Yeah, we could do this in early July and still have a decision for you before you have to make the decision, for November, but it makes sense to do it now. What happens after the research is done, I will write a very detailed report, and the school administration, and particularly the communications people involved, will take that and, do their best in terms of putting together a communications plan, do their best in terms of getting the right people to the polls. And yeah, things can certainly happen between them. There can be opposition groups that start up, all kinds of possibilities. There could be weather on election day. Interesting situation on that. Did a study for Milford 2 years ago, and the research said that I think it was 58% in favor, and they went in November of 12 for just an operating levy for like $3 or $4 million. And they went on election day with the presidential election. They had no idea what was going to happen. They knew they were taking their chances, and they lost, I think, by 300 votes out of 21,000. It was really close. They also did not have a full-time communications person. They were sharing one with a couple of other districts. So between November and May of 13, they hired a full-time communications person, and when they went in May, not against the presidential election, they won 60-40. So a lot of the timing also has to do with when you're on the ballot. I think coming up we have a gubernatorial race and maybe a couple of, obviously, Congress and that sort of stuff. But a lot of times, of course, there were plenty of districts that lost a couple of weeks ago also in May. So you're taking your chances with timing, whatever you're doing.
A question on your sampling technique. Do I understand that you're going to identify a random sample, a cross-section of our voting community to go
Correct.
after? We're not accepting people who want to go online and fill out a survey, correct?
The telephone portion, which will be 333 completed interviews, I believe, I think that's right, will be a total random sample. We're purchasing lists of people who are registered voters. The screening questions, the first two are you a registered voter and do you live in the Forest Hill School District? And if there were important issues on the ballot this coming November, would you be planning to vote? We get a lot of no's on that, and they don't qualify. The online portion, yes. Anybody who goes to your website, clicks on it, and gets past those first two questions would be part of the sample. Now, what we're going to do is make sure that it balances demographically with the rest of the sample. But yeah, and again, you could get 1,000 responses to that online in a district of this size. But that's a third of the sample right now.
Okay. Because what I'm looking for is if we have 2 or 3 ideas, propositions, will any or all of them get 51% of the vote? That's what I'm looking for.
And again, I'm doing a study right now in Chagrin Falls up near Cleveland, and they're testing 2 options. And it's been in the field for a couple of weeks, and they've had 750 responses. And as of this moment, one of them is getting 60%, and one of them is getting 40%. So it's pretty clear. Now, if they all get 55%, then you'll still need to use judgment. Research is just an aid to judgment. It's not the end-all, be-all. It does have statistical reliability, but on the converse side, it has statistical unreliability some of the time. But as I said, it's better than what you have right now, which is guessing.
You feel better about us giving you 2 options or 3 options?
2 would be certainly easier for the average person to compare and contrast. you can do 3. If you do 2, you could probably spend a little bit more time describing each one. You're constrained by, you want the telephone interview to be 15 minutes at the absolute most. And for something like this, people will stay on the line for 15 minutes. It's not like we're calling to talk about your toothpaste today. This is something everybody has a vested interest in, whether it's their money or their kids. So they will spend that time. But yeah, I mean, 2 would be better than 3. But if the 3 are measurably different, that's the other thing. If 2 of them are real close to each other and very different from the third one, it's going to be hard to weed those out. I always say, whether you're testing products or advertising or school bond issues, make sure that what you're offering as options are measurably different. And again, having 6 elementary schools versus 4 would certainly be a good example of being measurably different.
Anyone else? Let me ask this question of the board. I was of the opinion until yesterday that we were trying to work towards 2 or 3, preferably 2 options that John would then run with and survey. And there was some question yesterday of whether we would proceed with a survey. I'm still in favor of that. If people are still not comfortable with the survey, are there other questions you care to ask Mr. Fox to see if we can get there?
I feel way better than yesterday.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Glad.
I'm
if you want to call me with any other questions,
Yeah,
please do.
I'll call you. I'm still just a little uncomfortable with the online portion of it, and I get that one computer, and you made a face, and you are the process guy. So if you made a face, that even makes me a little more uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't understand how, if you're testing different options, aren't you getting a statistically significant sample and testing one with a separate group that's statistically significant, testing with them, and a third one? I didn't know you could actually ask the same person to compare
Well,
programs.
the way we do it, and I'll use research terms, you do it monadically first. Okay, so
Okay.
you take each one at a time, and they are presented. Even if there's 3, they're going to be presented in a different rotation every 3rd interview, so there's no order bias. You would present them individually first, and then you would have a summary question. Okay, we just laid out 3 options. Which do you like the best? Which do you like the least? If there's 3, and if there's only 2, which do you prefer? And then you ask that why question. It's the unaided, open-ended question in their own words to really find out what's on their mind.
Yeah, the second concern I had was opt-in. I'm not, that's just not familiar with that, your ability to do that. Normally, you're selecting the random sample of the community and going after them, as opposed to allowing interested people to give their input.
And that's why I tell districts to do the entire thing online, that it's not representative.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas if we, and look, we can do less than a third online if you want, if you're uncomfortable with that. We can do more via telephone.
Well, we really do need to rely on what you
Yeah.
recommend and what
Yeah,
your
I agree
expertise
with that.
tells
Yeah.
us.
That's why I asked the confidence interval. I mean, if
Yeah.
you tell me you've got a technique that will deliver plus or minus, like you said, 4%, 95% of the time,
Yeah.
okay, that's pretty much standard.
That's it.
But, okay.
And if I might add, when I spoke with John, I had some questions. And we really expect quite a large number, I think, of online responses. And he assured me, and John, I'm not, correct me if I speak incorrectly, but he assured me that it's a random sample. So if there are 2,000, let's say, online responses, then randomly he's going to go through and pick those. It's not like, so I think that also helps in regards to the random.
Pick them, and then after we pick them, look at the demographics and make sure that they match and fill in the holes that we're missing from the phone portion, which is going to be totally random.
I just, I'm all for the survey, fine. We have to do something with our facilities. We haven't done it for too long. And I'd like to find out what's going to work or what's not going to work. But if you come back and I guess what I can't accept is that we can't do anything. So we're going to have to keep working to find something that's going to work, because each time the OFCC comes in or whoever comes in to evaluate, we have to get started on some sort of a plan. And if it's going to be we're just going to start renovating one at a time because that's all we can do, then that's what we'll have to do. We all want to do more than that, but I would hate for the survey to come back. You say, oh, no, you can't do
It's
anything.
negative on all three of them.
Yeah, no, you can't do anything, and then where does that put us? You know, I mean, but it's better to know than
It's
to go out there.
It's an
and get
aid to
hammered.
judgment. At that point, you use your judgment and say, they're not going to vote for any of these, so let's do
But we
this.
haven't done anything for a long time, and so it's, you know, I know it's the commitment of all of us that we're going to do something, so we need to find out what that something is that we can get past.
Yeah. Tony, doing nothing is not an option for this group. That's just
Exactly.
unacceptable. But putting a plan out there that doesn't have a 95% chance of passing, if we know going in, we're not going to get anywhere, that to me is the equivalent of doing nothing.
Well, that's
So
the
we've
point of
got
the
to
survey.
find,
Yeah. I just want to make that point that we can't, survey matters. The surveys we've done in the past have mattered, should have mattered, you know, so we've got a lot out there. This is going to be another piece of information. Yes.
Another aid to judgment.
So what you're saying is, when I said if it tells you to go ahead, it's important. If it tells you not to go ahead, it's even more important. You're saying if it tells us to not go ahead, we're probably still going to go ahead with something.
No, what I'm saying is if it tells us not to go ahead, we have to find something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but, so we have to do something. We have to find what that is. It's better for us to find that out sooner than later.
Yep.
We've waited too long.
Other questions for Mr. Fox?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, John.
I'll see you tomorrow morning.
What I'd like to do is discuss the plans that we would consider for Mr. Fox's survey. But before we do that, Joe Kunkel's here. Does anybody have any questions about the presentation from yesterday that they care to ask Joe? I do. Would you mind coming up, Joe?
Okay.
Explain for me one more time what renovate to new really means.
Okay. The renovate to new scenario is basically we're getting into the building and the different levels of the building, looking at all the systems. And the intent to that is basically saying, okay, we want to get these systems up and running as if they were, in essence, a new building. If you move in a new building, you have an air handler that's going to last 25 years. Theoretically, if we have an air handler that's 20 years old, only has a few years left on it, we're going to replace that with a new. On the other hand, if we have in a renovation, if we have an air handler that's just been put in the last 5 years, it's going to come pretty close to 20, 25 years. So you would keep those aspects of it. Likewise, from the big thing though, that's from the infrastructure standpoint. Then the other piece is from the educational aspect of it and what you can do by, again, focusing on the things that you think are important. We talked about the aspect of putting entry vestibules and security vestibules on the buildings. The attribute of that, one of them is the fact that you get a little bit of an addition that allows a little bit of a wow factor that's a new part of the building. And I think we had a rendering in the earlier presentation showing air with that sort of example. Likewise at Anderson, things like that can be done that gives it that new look also. But it's basically going through the building, and then inside, from an academic standpoint, you're looking at academics. Can you create spaces that extend learning areas and things that you can do that not only from renovate to new in terms of facility infrastructure, but in terms of educational aspects. Can I set you up for flexibility for 21st century learning, potential STEM aspects to the high school, and really focus it to, from an educational standpoint, what the goals and objectives of the district are for the future.
Are you ripping out floors, ripping out walls, that type of thing?
Yes and no. It all depends. It'll be facility by facility. How many walls are about, and such like here. There's an area with the
Ceilings.
classrooms and the ceilings. Most of that would just all come out and start over.
That's my concern. If it's minor cosmetics, that's probably not what we're looking for. But this is a really good example here where you need changes in walls in the classrooms. The design here just needs to be completely
This is an extreme makeover.
Okay, and that is part of the plan that we're looking at
Yes.
for the dollars that we're,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, sorry, I got a cold, but yeah. In those areas, like I say, it's particularly where they've come in and they've had the kind of the open plans and they closed them in. And that's kind of what happened here. We need to make that right, so it really does have the educational aspects of a real classroom, a functional classroom for the future.
And some of the other buildings that I did see that you have done the renovate to new, it looks like there's a new facade on the front, possibly new roofs, maybe not this building, like for example, Anderson though. That's what we're talking about, right? So that,
Correct. And again, we'll work with you in pinpointing what those areas are and how we go about that. But the opportunity is, again, you're directing that, you're deciding, and you're making the decision on what's important. And again, from what we've done, again, familiar with Miamisburg, that's kind of the results you end up with.
I just want to make sure we're not budgeting for a Chevy and thinking we're getting a Cadillac, and 5 years from now we go, what happened?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have, mine are, I have two comments. They're more in the nature of comments than they are questions, although the second one maybe is more of a question. I was walking in with, or talking to somebody just before the meeting about, like, at least Air and Sherwood, which are the same school, and we've had kids in both. You put up, there's really no significant outside light element in those schools, and if you, what makes it seem like there's more than there is the open space. If you put up walls in those buildings, the only outside light source are the doors. I think it's going to seem like fortresses in there. That's just an observation. But I have difficulty understanding how non-OFCC cost projections for 2 renovated high schools, 1 renovated middle school, 5 renovated elementaries, and 1 new elementary, based on renovation is 98, but if you, non-OFCC, but OFCC says 166, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, it is.
And I have a hard time seeing how there can be that much difference when we're not really suffering in what we're giving non-OFCC.
They are two different programs, and we've done OFCC and we've done the non-OFCC. And they are two different programs and two different approaches. One is very template driven. It's pretty much over the whole building, everything per the template. The other one is really driven by you and the decisions that you want to make in terms of your priorities, such as you mentioned, air and getting light. We'd establish that as a priority. So when we go through the design process, we're saying how we're going to get light in these classrooms. Those are the things where you'll have the opportunity to have that input, and we'll work through those areas. And we'll work it against the budget all the way through. And again, it comes from my background and my experience again in doing these type of facilities. 2 districts that are roughly $80 million each, Miamisburg and Sylvania, more recent, non-OFCC. And then actually recently down in also Tennessee, a STEM high school. That again, the database that we use for our numbers. They are 2 different programs. And I don't want to say what's in the OFCC, in terms of process and procedures and try to identify that. We take everything and really focus and get the most efficient and competitive way, even in terms of contract delivery. If a smaller project makes sense to be single prime contract, we'll put that smaller project out as single prime contract. There's a prescribed way with OFCC for every project, always kind of goes through the same process. That's some of what makes that happen.
Well, I'm keeping going with this just for a minute. The OFCC, and they seem to be, they're supposedly objective, and they're the experts in their fields, and they have no, what personal interest or skin in the game do they have not to give us what they believe as experts, objective experts, is the best for us? I'm placing too much reliance on the OFCC, but they, especially when districts around us are building to OFCC standards, it seems like it's the standard by which to measure what we do, to me. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, there's nothing wrong with OFCC. I've done a lot of them. I backed them up. I'm behind that. Typically, when we get into these districts, and again, this is a district decision. This reason both are out there. You got to look at both. I think it might be best if you again get up to Miamisburg and walk you through, and we can show you exactly what it is and why the differential. And it's better again walk 2 or 3 examples there and walk you through and explain what the difference was. And as you walk through the building, you'll see we did this here, we did that there. Educationally, OFCC is very sound. I know a lot of people that work there. I said we worked on a lot of them. It's fairly a standard template. They have gone to extended learning areas and done some things to incorporate other areas, but it's very much driven by keeping equity. Whatever you do here, they want to make sure it doesn't differentiate between what they did somewhere else. When they do demographics, when they had the 4 elementary proposal, it was 3,616 students. You get classrooms for 3,616 students, no more. If you felt that you needed a little extra classroom space, basically that'd be something we focus as a program requirement to work into it. All your mechanical rooms in the new building are inside. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it isn't.
As I've mentioned to the group, yes, I did go up to Miamisburg and looked at a couple of those schools that Dallas suggested, and I feel a lot more comfortable having seen them, but like I said, I just wanted to make sure that the cost, that wasn't like a, Mercedes renovate to new, and that we wouldn't be getting something like that, because it looked like new.
Yeah, I mean, that was very much in line with the same database we're using here.
Now, have you found that these OFCC, when you've done the OFCC projects, are these numbers accurate? I mean, is it a...
We've always beat the budget. I mean, I think they tried to stay fairly conservative. The only time the OSFC got hit was back in, I think I mentioned before, the price of steel spiked in 2001 or 2002. And since then, our experience has been that when we bid it out and we, the drawings are good and complete, the bidding is very, very competitive. We have some districts that have turned back substantial amounts of money, others a little less. We never gone over budget with an OFCC project. I'm not saying that they play it too safe, but I mean, they're careful in that regards. Because in the end, if the money isn't spent, it goes back to the state. Because if you try to go back, you can go back and try to spend it, but it has to be something that truly is in accordance with the OSDM. So in a process and procedure, we did that once, and we proposed something, and they allowed part of it, but we ended up having to spend LFI to make it work. So it's a very much an equity game with other districts in terms of how it works. But as the OFCC has done a whole lot to help a lot of districts, we just tend to find ourselves in again, not our choice, we just put it on the table. The districts we're involved with, the higher equity districts tend to be in the non-OFCC when they get to that usually 20-25% breaking point, versus the ones who, as I say, when we started the program, our first district, they were getting 90 cents on the dollar. It was excellent for them. And the idea was they moved in, they redid everything, they really pushed to make as much of this rebuild as possible, so that they knew that district would have a hard time down the road, passing another bond issue. So they were done for a good 40 years.
So what you're saying is maybe the OFCC schools that we've said, a lot of it might have to do with who can get the most money to offset maybe what that cost is?
Yeah, the
Is that what
percentage
you're
of the
saying?
rebate.
Yeah,
Yes.
so their rebate, I mean, would you say that is what's happened when we say there's a lot of OFCC schools around here that they might be having access to money that we don't have access to?
I don't know the numbers. Some districts may still take it at the lower end. I'm just saying that's just been our experience. Is that when the districts are 25% plus that they're getting from OFC, those have been the ones that tend to be going with the program. And again, they have their own numbers. I mean, they have to match up and what could they pass, what could they make work. Again, I don't know the reason behind that. That was the board's decision in all those cases, as is here. I mean, you're looking at both OFCC and you're looking at the non-OFCC. It's, in making the comparison and trust that we've put enough information out there to make it understandable.
Mm-hmm.
It truly becomes your program when it's non-OFCC because there is no co-owner. You are the owner. So it's 100% where if you think that entry is important and that vestibule and the office is there or the extended learning area, decision's done. Many times you have to go through a variance process with OFCC. Now I will say they've lightened up in that area a little bit with extended learning areas. They've made it a little bit easier in that regards.
Tony, that percent of money that districts get, that's a key part of some of our neighbors to the east, for the next 1, 2, and 3 counties to our east.
Yeah.
And they're knocking down buildings that are 40 years old, and they're getting 90% of the money, they can do that. We've got to be a little bit more responsible because it's locally generated money.
But there are wealthier districts that are still building to OFCC as well. there are wealthier districts that are building to OFCC as
And
well.
taking the money,
Yeah,
going with the money.
yeah, and it's not just Cincinnati Public or Brown County or Adams County, it's others too.
I know some have also built to the, what look like the number, but weren't OFCC, and have some things that are really, you know, I won't say extravagant, but, you know, they use their number as a benchmark. You can do a whole lot beyond that almost.
I agree, and Julie, you're absolutely correct, but I think in most of the cases that I've heard that we refer to, it's just kind of what Joe said. Most of the districts that will say, okay, we may not use the OFCCs as far as the rebate and going through the program, okay, but they might use the standards. In other words, and I think that's what's happened quite often, or more often than the ones that are the immediate ones that we might refer to, were not actually part of the process.
You got to leave at 6:15.
Yeah, I hate to jump in here. This is just a little bit out of order. I missed my daughter's dance recital last night, and tonight is a concert, which takes 30 minutes at Nagel. John Vandermeer promised me. So I'm going to zip over there. That starts at 6:30. But the one thing I wanted to say, if we're going to talk about doing the study and what options, if we're looking at two options, my favorite two options to put forward would probably be the renovate to new 2 high schools, renovate to new middle school, and then the current configuration below the high schools as one option. And the other option would be renovate to new the high schools, renovate to new the middle schools, and then 4 brand new elementaries. That would probably be my other option. My other option, if I'm offering out to the community for considerations in a survey, is what I think I would like to look at. And my reasoning, again, not to try to give the Reader's Digest version. We've been burned up with phone calls, emails, conversations wherever we go. And we've talked to so many people and heard so many different sides, and I do believe in Forest Hills. I do believe that we have a great school system. I do believe we have great educators. We have leadership that are going to figure out what we have to do to get it right inside the buildings. I do believe people have moved here because they like the configuration that we have, all of that kind of stuff, and I happen to be somebody who believes that renovate to new. I've never met you. I believe you're a professional. I know you got a billion-dollar company, that you guys do this stuff all over the place. I've seen some renovate to new buildings, and I don't believe it's putting a Band-Aid on it in any step at all. And so I believe in that. However, it is an opportunity. This is going to be a one-shot to get something right, and I'd like to look at a 4 elementary configuration. Look at it. 4 new elementary configuration, to look at it, to test it. And my criteria as we would go forward, I would want something that, even though it's going to have more kids, we could keep it to 25 to 1, you know, as far as a student-teacher ratio. It could be the shiny new pennies. It could have all the 21st century learning that we need to have on the inside of it, all that type of stuff. And I would like to see what that looks like. And there's nothing that says, if that works, that 20 years from now, you know, the renovate to new high schools, that might be a different discussion, but you're not taking on 9 buildings at once that time. Maybe you're taking on 2 buildings to have to discuss. But I won't be on that board. Forest Heights might, but I won't be. So, but anyway, I'm just sharing my opinion before I run out the door, and I'll be back by hopefully 7:15-ish. But I would like in the survey for us to look at that option. Renovate to new at the high school level, 4 brand new elementaries in one option, and keeping the same configuration as the other option. So there it goes. All right.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks. I'll be back.
If anyone has other questions for Joe, let's pose them, and then otherwise what I'd like to do is move on to public commentary, and then after that, board discussion and hopefully a decision on what we can do about the survey.
Hey, Jim, can I ask one question?
Of course.
Tony alluded to is useful life. Obviously, fixed assets fall under me, and I still may be here with Forrest. What would be the difference in the useful lives of the renovate to new plan versus the new? Because that question has come up curious what the difference is.
The concept of when we talk about the 40-year design life, when you basically take a building, you're trying to maintain the value of the building at the level that it was built at. If it could always stay like the day it was built, you in essence have a design life that goes on forever. So typically when, a building starts deteriorating, there's a curve we do that's kind of is a curve that takes consideration maintenance, increased maintenance, and how you get it back up to almost where it was at that brand new level. And that curve can go on and on for some time. In other words, whether it's a new building or renovated to new, in 40 years, you go back in and do a lot of additional work in that building. And that cycle could go on for even, as they say, a building you have this built in the 60s, you go through that cycle and renovate to new. 40 years, you could go through and renovate to new again, and that same building could be around another 100 years, 120 years. The building structures are a little bit different than they were around the turn of the century. A lot of them are much more stable in terms of long-term. Some you got to look at. If you build new, is it going to be a little bit longer? Funny thing is, a lot of the buildings, I think someone mentioned it, OFCC ended up tearing down a lot of the buildings from the 70s because there were some problems and some of them were built almost, not to a standard that was high enough. Ceilings were too low. I mean, this building has a lot to work with. The ceilings are high enough, the structure is, highly, integrity of the structure is good. So from a long-term standpoint, this building has an opportunity to be on that same cycle as if you build a new building today. In the end, is the one going to be new, going to be a little bit longer than the other one? Yeah, it might go another cycle. I mean, but I think you're out there, you're talking another cycle. So you're out there to that 40 to 80 year scenario.
What does another cycle mean?
A building to a 40-year is kind of the design standard for what a building should last. Now, granted, not every system in the building goes to that 40 years. The OFCC uses that as criteria. It's used a lot in the industry in general. An institutional, highly, I won't say institutional, let's say governmental, we'll call monumental buildings, they're probably built to like $300, $500 a square foot. Those are considered almost a 100-year life because they're somewhat mammoth in that regards in terms of the structure and such. Commercial buildings are often built to a 10 to 20-year life. All they have to do is make the cycle of the payback of the commercial entity they're in. 40 to 50 years is a good life cycle for school and education.
So I don't understand what you said. You kind of just put the cycle thing at the very end. What does that mean between the renovation building and the new building? Who has, Rick asked how.
Is there, if there's advantage?
Well, what is the,
Well,
what is the useful life of each?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a question.
They end up really both being, in essence, 40 years.
But as you cycle through 40 years after another, you might get one more 40-year cycle out of the new
Out of
versus
the
the
new.
renovate.
Correct.
Right, and that I get it.
Yeah.
Other questions? We have any cards, Susan? Does anybody care to fill out any cards?
We got some cards in.
There,
There we go.
double back.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Jenny Misakawa?
Come on up.
Come on up, Jenny. In 4 minutes. 4 minutes? Good, all right.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You did well with my last name. This is my first opportunity to attend or participate in the school board meeting. And just in the beginning, I want to tell you that we do appreciate, this is a hard job, and I appreciate what you're doing. I am a mother of 5 children. My husband and I have 5 kids that attend Forest Hill schools. Well, 4 in school, 1 yet to arrive in school. My oldest will be starting high school, and then I have 3 grade schoolers currently. We have lived here for 10 years. And I have 2 just brief and direct points I'd like to make of concern to me. We moved here into this specific part of Cincinnati because we were attracted by a high-performing school system that still had neighborhood schools. That was incredibly valuable to me. And so as we look at this process going forward, my perspective as a parent of school children, and particularly grade school children, I have loved the experience we have had here in Anderson. We are fortunate enough to live in an area close enough that we actually walk to school. That may not be the general experience, but it certainly is for a large part of our population in Forest Hills. And I feel like that is a factor that needs to be given weight. There's a huge amount of, I think that the number one factor for good education isn't simply, facilities. Facilities is important, we want to support that. But I think that the most important factor, obviously, is family support, parent involvement in the schools, and what the educators give. And I feel like these 6 neighborhood schools have contributed to building really tightly knit communities where you have the opportunity for siblings walking together to school, kindergartners walking together with their big brothers and big sisters. The parents that they see along the way are the parents that are going to volunteer in their classrooms. They know the crossing guard, they know the principal, they know the teachers. That is a beautiful thing in this country. I really have appreciated that. So I'm here as a proponent of that. I have heard wonderful, many options set forward with many different variables. But from my single perspective, this mother likes those 6 neighborhood schools. It is a valuable, valuable thing. Along that same line, I understand that we're looking at cost effectiveness, and to some extent there's this option for 4 new or 6 renovated. I have no problem with the concept of renovate to new. To me, that sounds like a wise use of resources. Again, because I don't see having the most state-of-the-art facility as the primary factor in how good of an education my children receive. Whether that was my experiences growing up or seeing what happens with my children now, I've so appreciated the principals and educators that have been involved in my children's life, and they are receiving a fantastic education in old schools. Do we need to buffer it up and give them a little bit more structure? Sure we do, but I don't think that's the primary factor. I think this community-based school system, community based around these schools is the primary factor in why our children are succeeding. So I would hate to throw that out the window when we have something that's doing very well. The last comment I would like to make is in regard to the surveys that are upcoming. I was contacted with the last round of surveys, so I received a phone call from that one, and it was an interesting experience for me, and I would say a little bit troubling, because at that point, I appreciate all you're doing to try to get information down to us on a public level. There's certainly a huge gap in information, and I heard questions to that regard. How do you ask questions when the person receiving the questions may not be well informed? Those are valid concerns. But my experience in taking the survey was frustrating specifically because I felt that the questions were funneling me toward a desired answer. And so I heard several things from the gentleman who spoke to marketing that relieved me. He said, we would like to hear in their own words, what are their concerns or what are they in favor of? And so I'm addressing that kind of issue in upcoming surveys so that you get a true opportunity for public input would be helpful from my perspective. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mary Kate Carpenter.
Good evening. I'm Mary Kate Carpenter, and I have 3 grade school children. And this evening, my question to pose to the board is in regards to, during all the surveying and the community surveying on the online, or if you're going to be doing phone calls, my question for you to consider is in regards to the families that are renting properties and sending their children to the schools. If there is a way to, and it may have to be a grassroots approach, but there are a significant number of children that go to school with my children whose families are not registered voters in Hamilton County. They are not necessarily taxpayers in the community, yet their children are benefiting from the schools. And if there's a way to possibly even do a campaign to get people to be registered voters, I think we will have a better turnout of families that are currently using the schools. So whatever that proponent to proposals we will be approaching, if there is a way to try to get more people to register. I just even know for my children's school, there is a busload that fills from the rental community, and I think those families could get more involved. And I know Mr. Smith has outreach to our school before, and more parents feel connected because he's asking them questions. So I would really like to see something as it moves forward, because that's an entire population that really needs to be more supporting your efforts. And so that was my comment for this evening. Thank you.
All right, so Tony spoke his piece and walked out, very brave of him. We've got to speak our piece and stay. You all, if you were here last night, you heard what my thought was. I like the idea of a survey. I agree actually a lot with what Tony said. I think that we've got two very different proposals. One's OFCC, meets OFCC standards, one doesn't. One is for new elementary proposal, and the other is renovate to new the existing buildings with the exception of Williston. I could support either one. What I would be interested in was, from my perspective, what the community is prepared to support. What I don't want to do is see us make too many significant changes to an already high-performing district. It's working, let's not break it in the process. So I'd like to see us do a survey with those two proposals as Tony had suggested.
What I'd like to test for is two things. One is the sensitivity to cost. We talked yesterday about one of the 7 mil plans. I personally don't think that will fly in the community, but that's why we do testing. And the second thing I'd like to test for is the sensitivity of closing elementaries. Yes, I'm all for efficiency, and I mean, if it was all equal, sure, I'd want to go down to 4 because there are some operating efficiencies there. But on the other hand, as I've said a number of times, we need to put a plan out there that will get 51% of the vote. So if that's why I want to test for one of the plans with 6 elementaries, 5 renovated, 1 new. I'd want to see that tested, and also would want to test 4 elementaries. And the only reason I would disagree with Tony on his 4 new is that's a $132 million plan, it exceeds 107, and so I don't see how you get there from here. So that's why I would suggest that we test the 2 renovated high schools, 1 renovated middle school, and the 4 elementaries with 3 renovated and 1 new, because that's a $107 million plan, and we know that we can borrow money for that.
Yeah, I thought what Tony was talking about, if you look at Dallas's proposals, or at least I know what I was talking about, we were on the non-OFCC proposal. I think Tony was talking about the first one at the 2 renovated high schools, 1 renovated middle school, and
Correct.
the 6 elementaries and 98 million. And then he was talking about the same one I thought I was talking about, the 2 renovated high schools, 1 renovated middle school at OFCC standards, plus 4 new elementaries at a cost of $173 million.
Okay. If we're going to, then to me I would want to look at a third one, even though I think we said we didn't want to do that. I would want to take a look at a 6, a 4, and then a OFCC. And by the way,
You're going to have to go slower for me.
okay?
Tell me which, are you in line with Tony and Jim on those 2 for sure?
It sounds like I'm not in line with Tony. The first
Well,
one.
I think Tony and Jim are the same 2.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you which 2 I'm,
Okay,
I'm
go
looking at
down.
in the
Let's-
non-OFCC.
Randy, slow down. Let's go on OFCC first. Which one on there are you for? Testing, or none of those? Under the OFCC?
The second one down, the 2 renovated high schools, 1 renovated middle school, and 4 new elementaries.
Okay, that's on the back page of the first OFCC.
Yep.
Okay, all right. What's next?
The non-OFCC, the first one at the top of the page, 2 renovated high schools, 1 renovated middle school, and 6 elementaries, 5 renovated, 1 new.
He's going to show us.
Yeah.
That one? There.
That's what I'm going to say is this one.
Okay,
See, first and third.
right, that makes it, yes.
And again, the purpose for that is to test against the 7 mil plan, or the 173 million, versus something that's in roughly the 100 million range for cost sensitivity. And then also test sensitivity for the community to support our current configuration of neighborhood schools versus consolidating to 4. That's the two things that I want to understand.
You said a third bill, didn't you?
Well,
That was the OFCC one.
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, okay, to summarize, the OFCC, got that one,
Yeah.
2 renovated high schools and 6 elementaries, and the third one down is 2 renovated high schools and 4 elementaries, with 3 renovated and 1 new.
Got it.
I guess what I ask is, do we agree on what, I think it's more important to talk about what we're testing for. Unless people,
Well, I understood that that's what our expert's going to do for us. We're going to tell him what plans we're looking at, and he's going to design the survey.
yeah, that's not what I meant, I didn't mean the survey, but I mean, what are the questions we're trying to answer? And the questions I'm trying to answer is would the community support a 7 mil, $173 million plan? Or would they support a $107 million plan?
Well, there's a little more to the question than that.
I
We're
know,
gonna have to
but that's the
provide
end
case.
result. At the end of the day, that's what I want to that's what I want to know. And the
Yes,
same
with
thing
the
with
appropriate background in order to guide
Sure.
them in their decision.
But that's the question I'm asking him.
Right.
And then the same with the elementaries.
Julie Forrest?
All right. I agree that with the two main questions, I think it is unfortunate that a secondary question of OFCC versus non-OFCC is really not an option. I would love to see a 4 new non-OFCC versus OFCC and see the importance in the community of having those standards. But it's not, I bring that up and then I will quickly not bring it up again because it's a moot point. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, one of the issues is we've talked a lot about OFCC versus non-OFCC, and you've heard some of it today. There is a rule that we found out that limits your ability to ask for non-OFCC money. And when Randy brought up the 107 number, that's what the maximum amount that our district can ask taxpayers for. Even if taxpayers wanted to give more, can't do it. We can't put something on for that. But if we go by their standards, well, then then we can go higher. Okay. So that's it. So when Randy was bringing up the 107, that was the one that kind of maximized our ability to generate non-OFCC funds. So we can't test for whether OFCC is important, and I think that'd be hard to test for anyway. So it's a moot point. I like the idea of the two. I don't see a lot of value for people who are excited about the 4 new elementaries, and for the people, it seems like there are people that are excited about that. There are people who are excited about our 6 elementary system. I don't hear a lot about people who are excited about a 4 elementary system that involves renovations of those. I just don't see that. And maybe that's why you test it. But for me, that almost seems like a wasted choice or a complicating factor in that there would be a plan that either way it's going to I don't want to say revolutionize, but it's going to birth our district. We're going to have a different district than we have now. We do it with one system or with another system, but it's a big deal. That's one plan I don't see that doesn't satisfy either side.
I agree with you. Doing a renovation to four elementaries doesn't make sense to me.
So the one that's not on here, which I hesitate to bring up, but on the other hand, this is the time to do it, I mean, I like the two plans, and I'm perfectly happy with going with those two. I think those they're different enough, as he said, we get an idea. We'll get information. I see it as an aid to judgment too. So it truly is. I mean, it's going to be our choice, okay, ultimately. And that will give us information where I could, if we hybridize it at some point too, I don't know how that would happen, but on the other hand, I could see it based on the information that comes in, especially if it was a catastrophic response that Tony alluded to. But in previous discussions, there was a discussion of 2 new elementary schools renovating the others.
How many others?
Well, and then that would bring that up, is a 4 renovation, 2 new. I don't know, one of the things that we found through this, if we looked at all the numbers, was that the difference for our elementaries for some of the renovations were, and that's what we found, obviously with Wilson being the obvious one where renovation cost more than building anew. But some of the schools, or some of them were pretty close to, there wasn't a big difference between new or renovating to new. If that's something that, and I'll be straight up front. I mean, there's the why Wilson, okay? And I bring it up because I'm the Wilson parent. I get that. Now again, my kids probably won't benefit from any of this, but that's not why we're here. But is that
We
divide?
as a board have been saying forever that Wilson is regardless of
I
your
understand, but
affiliation with
I
that
also
school.
hear other.
I mean, we all have. So you
Right.
can take that on yourself, but we
Okay.
all have. Go
Right.
ahead. Go
So
ahead.
but is to bring that up is to take, there are 2 schools that have trailers. That is unacceptable. It's unacceptable in our district. Okay? Now, every plan takes away those trailers. But, I bring that up as a potential other option in that I would think that the difference, on a 98 million, and maybe Joe could talk to
You
that.
can't do it on a non-OFCC.
We'd
go in excess of
we'd be over
107 million.
107, wouldn't we, Joe?
Well, you
We'd
add
have to be.
15 million to it.
Yeah.
Well, we were taking away whatever the renovation cost was of that school.
It doesn't take much to take us over.
9 million.
Joe, the question is, could we do 2 new and 2 renovated and renovate the high schools and the middle school for 107 or less?
2 new and 4 renovated.
4 renovated, excuse me.
I'd
Two.
say you'd be very close, it'd be a little bit more, because we're already putting money in, when we do the renovation of the 5, renovating, the 6 still, and replacing Wilson, we have an allocation of money to add additions. What that would mean then, we would be taking one down and spending a little more money to turn that into a new school rather than additions. Quite honestly, it's a little bit more. It probably would not hit the 107, be a little bit below it. I can't tell you offhand, but my guess is maybe 5 or 6, because in essence you're building another $15 to $16 million elementary. So you're taking the 8 to, I don't remember what the number is, 8 to 10 that we're using to put additions on the other ones. Now we'd have to be strategic there to make sure you're still getting some additions you want, so you might want to be able to cushion yourself close to that 107.
Would it matter which elementary we renovated? Because they have different costs of renovating to new. And just looking at this, Mercer's the highest.
If Mercer went away, that's the one would be easier to replace, and the differential would be less. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's fairly confident saying you could be doing it below the 107 threshold.
but probably not air, because that's the lowest.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
So I bring that up.
So,
I remember that from before. I remember
Yeah, I remember that from
discussing.
before, when we talked about, you know, we had talked about Wilson and Maddox being the two to target.
Julie?
Between the last, not yesterday's meeting, but the last meeting before that, and yesterday's meeting, when the discussion started to focus on 4 new elementary schools and renovating the high schools, for the first time, we had discussions ourselves. We got emails. People approached us. The conversation, the tone of the conversation changed. And I said to Jim, for the first time, I'm excited. And if I'm excited, and I've had some different opinions potentially and some questions that other board members haven't, but all of a sudden I'm excited. And I said, if I'm excited, I bet some other folks are excited too. And sure enough, some of the folks who had some misgivings, even the people that were sort of championing one high school said, this is something I could get behind. This is something that makes me excited. Then we hear from people today, and we've had yet another sort of wave of opinions of, you know, we really like it the way it is. We all love our schools. We love our neighborhood schools. So, you know, that's come into the conversation again in the last week or so. So I am supportive of the two concepts that we've all agreed to. I would not put a third concept in because I think it gets confusing and I think it'll water down. I don't think we'll find out anything significant as to what our decision will ultimately be. So the one thing that still concerns me is that the term renovate to new, Joe, sorry. I just think new is new and renovate is renovate. And I think that that's a confusing term too because, and I understand it as well as I can understand it. I'm not a construction person or an engineer or an architect. But I still don't like that term. And I don't even like using it in our survey. But for, you know, whatever, you know, I can certainly go a little bit with the flow on that. But renovate is renovate to me and new is new.
that's why we need a field trip,
Well,
because you need to see it.
Well, I think that, and even speaking with Mr. Fox, I can share with him that, I mean, you don't have to use that term. I mean, we can talk about what does renovation mean, what does new mean, and this. I'm pretty sure we can do that.
They renovated the high school I went to, and I didn't recognize it when I went in. And this was, you know, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe at our 15th year reunion or whatever. I went in it and I didn't recognize it, but I'm telling you that that school was nowhere near what Princeton is going to look like when it's done. It just wasn't. It was still McDowell High School with new stuff in it, but it wasn't a new building.
Well, and I think that,
And now they're going out, you know, they're going out for a brand new high school. So, you know, and I get it, Randy, and we all have to do our due diligence and go to school. Some of us have, no question. But I'm good with the two proposals.
well, the nice thing about where we are tonight is we're not making a decision. What we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to our consultant. We've got 2 proposals that we're going to submit to him, correct?
Which two were you?
Well, just so there's no confusion, Dallas, is this thing available on the board? Can we put it up there and everybody can see what we're looking at? Turn to, what would it be?
Also, your Dallas, your thoughts too.
Next one,
Sixth slide.
right there.
That's it. So I think, you all look at this, make sure I'm not speaking out of turn. On the OFCC cost projections, what we're looking at is the second one down, which is the renovation of the 2 high schools, the renovation of the middle school, and 4 new elementaries, all to OFCC standards. If we consider this further, we will at some point consider whether we'll delay Nagel, but for purposes of the survey, we certainly aren't going to talk about that now. That's right, that's number one. And then if you can turn to the next slide,
Or
please.
can I just stop you just for a second? Really, we're not gonna, would the survey be including naval? Because we talked about,
We're stuck
holding
with
the-
it.
right?
We
But we
have
don't-
to if we're gonna meet the OFCC standards.
Right,
They
but we
make us
can-
do it.
Right, but we can,
What we can do is we can table the work at Naval
Right.
at about $10.5 million until roughly the third, fourth year when we get the 15% back from the state and do it with that money.
right, and that's what we talked about, and, but somehow in the survey, I would think that that has to be
Yeah, no, I think that should be
clear.
part of that.
That
Because,
should.
you know, you're
That
looking
should
at
definitely be part of it.
7.52 as opposed to 6.99.
Well, plus the half mil PI that OFCC requires us to do. All that has to be part of it. All right, so now we're on the non-OFCC, and it is, the other one we're looking at is the top one where we renovate 2 high schools, renovate the middle school, completely different type of renovation than OFCC is requiring, and then 6 elementaries with 5 renovated and 1 new, right?
That's correct.
When we talk about renovating to OFCC standards, I think we need to adjust our language there. It makes it sound like if we're not renovating to OFCC standards, that we're not renovating to some standard of sort, and that's actually,
Well,
that's not accurate.
look,
Well, it is a standard, it's their
It's their
standard, but it's a
standard, but it
standard.
doesn't mean it doesn't pass building code, that doesn't meet our academic needs.
Here's the thing I love about turning this over to John Fox. He's the expert. He's going to do this in what I expect to be an unbiased, transparent way where nobody's trying to game the outcome. And that's really what we're all looking for. So we can get an honest response from our community and we can be guided by it. That's where we're all trying to get.
Yeah, and I agree with what Jenny, wherever you are, what Jenny said about, it seemed like maybe the last survey or 2 surveys ago, it seemed like you were being funneled into a particular kind of answer. And what I heard Mr. Fox say was, that's not what this is gonna be. You get to say pretty much what you wanna say.
And we'll learn from it. All right, do we need a motion for this, Rick, or no?
Make one if you like, but don't need one.
Is
If
there-
we don't need one, then we won't make it.
Randy asked if there was anything Dallas wanted to say. I'd say
Yeah.
Dallas or Rick. I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
you all have done a lot of work on this.
A ton.
Well, I think what we've done is we I really appreciate the board's work. It's not our work. Our work is just the numbers and getting the things to you. I think what you've done tonight is very good in regards to narrowing down to a couple options. I think putting those options in front of our community and getting some market research, I think it will be great information to bring back to you. I'm very confident. I've looked at several of John's surveys. Very confident that what he'll do is quality work. There's no doubt about that. And he'll provide that in a timely fashion. Again, taking a look at an OFCC option and one that is not an OFCC option, I think that's very good, rather than staying in one category or the other. I mean, there are, as we said yesterday, there are merits. Yesterday I said positive and negatives to all of these plans. We have positives that, in regards to OFC and non-OFCC plans as well, and negatives. So this survey may help us come out with some better, clearer pictures of what our community understands and will maybe support. I think that's key.
Rick?
I guess to add to that, on the survey, it seems to me that, all of us have been at all the meetings, but the people getting the survey will probably not have been privy to much of this. So I think he used the word detailed concept statement. To me, those are critical. And, I don't know how much space we get, but, obviously the key pluses and minuses of all the plans, I think, are important so that we drive home the real differences or the benefits or challenges of the two, the real meaty parts of the pluses and minuses, if you will, because I don't know how much time we get in that concept statement.
But who will work with him on the concept statement? And do you have a team that's working with him, or how's that
As of
going?
right now, John and I and Rick are going to be meeting just to talk about the options that we've decided tonight. And actually, he will be putting, we can help him with the concept statement, but he'll put that concept statement together in that regard. So,
Because once we tell them what we're trying to learn, the client has no business fabricating the actual question. We can do the concept, we can work them on that, but that's where you get into bias when the client is writing some of the questions.
Right. All right, anyone else?
Just a quick comment to the audience. Most of the people know this, but you might wonder, why are we having these kind of conversations now? I mean, shouldn't we have had this kind of conversation? Don't we know where we are at? The answer is no, because legally we cannot get together to talk. Some of you may not realize that. The only time we're able to deliberate is when we're in an official board meeting. Yep, we're allowed to talk one-on-one, but three of us can't get together and talk. So that's why these sessions are very important for us, because it's our only chance to come and have discussion and hopefully come to consensus. So thank you for your patience.
Nor can we poll each other. And we really can't test out how things are going to come before we get here. So I really don't know what they're going to do till we sit here in this meeting. But I do appreciate working with everybody. Thank you all for your efforts. Why don't we take 5 minutes and we'll continue with the regular meeting here. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome for those of you who are just getting here. We had an earlier work session where we discussed facilities and made what I think is really meaningful progress. So we're excited about that. And continuing on with our meeting, we're at 4.1. We can have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of April 12th, 2014.
So moved.
I'm sorry, go ahead first.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. 4.2, approval of the minutes of the Board Policy Committee of April 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. And 4.3, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 28th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Correspondence. Dr. Jackson?
I have one piece of correspondence, and I think I'll save it because you'll probably be reporting on that as well, is the SAGA results. Were you going to talk about that today in your report?
Yes, but I'm happy to have you review it if you want.
Well, I'll help you then, or we'll get through that then. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Tepfer?
No.
Procedures for public commentary. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting held in public. Certainly, we welcome comments from the community. If you care to make any, fill out a green card, provide them up here to the front, and we will recognize you and listen to those comments at the appropriate time in the meeting. And moving on, section 6.1, Hamilton County Education Foundation Celebrate Excellence Educator Recognition. Ms. Ryan?
For item 6.1, I do have a commendation. On May 16, 2014, the Hamilton County Education Foundation hosted a Celebrate Excellent Educator Recognition Breakfast to honor excellence in public education in Hamilton County. The recipient of this award for the Forest Hills School District is Jeff Rodriguez from Anderson High School. Jeff, you here tonight? Come on up. I'd love to share a little bit of Jeff's nomination if I could.
Please.
As a physics teacher at Anderson High School, Jeff wears many hats, both in the classroom and in the community. Being a part of the Anderson High School Science Department for over 20 years, he has been instrumental in the development of the AP Physics program and the engineering program. His program has grown to include AP Physics 1 and 2, AP Physics C, Engineering Your Future, and Engineering Models. He is always on the watch for opportunities to introduce students to the many facets of the physical sciences. Jeff successfully authored a grant that enabled a group of students to study Hubble Space Telescope images to observe and calculate
luminosity and the mass of distant galaxies as they investigated the lensing effect predicted by Albert Einstein.
Very good.
For the past
Sheila for that one.
Yes, she did a great job. For the past 7 years, he has helped a group of 4 area high school students secure an internship with the University of Cincinnati Physics Department that involved analyzing data recorded by high-energy physics experiments. I'm not going to read
The Large Hadron
everything.
Collider in CERN.
Good job. I'm going to have you read.
Looking for matter-antimatter symmetry in the D0 natural decay pattern.
Amazing. He's
Kids can
entered.
explain it too.
I bet they could.
Yeah.
He's entered a group of students to compete for a chance to travel to Geneva to run an experiment using the protein beam at the LHC, proton beam, in the LHC in Europe. In addition, he coordinates with high schools looking to introduce students to serious high-level research opportunities in the area of cosmic rays. As an E-Fellow with QuarkNet, he conducts workshops and advises other physics high school teachers on how to use cosmic ray detectors in the classroom. This past winter, Jeff traveled to Mexico City to share his knowledge with a group of high school teachers.
Had to do the whole thing in Spanish. That was a challenge.
Wow. He's obviously a worthy candidate for this honor. The superintendent recommends the board commend Jeff Rodriguez for his achievement and distinction, and a certificate of commendation be presented to him. Congratulations.
I move that we commend Mr. Rodriguez.
So, second.
Mr. Pittsburgh? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Heiss?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
If I might just add one thing, I was very fortunate last Friday morning to have to attend the celebration of where Jeff was honored, and I met his lovely wife. And at the table, of course, I was Jeff, myself, and his wife, and a couple other folks. And his wife and I had a great conversation because I couldn't understand what he was saying. No, Jeff, congratulations again. Thank you.
You know, I want to say one thing too, and it's just based on personal experience. All these things, much of which probably most of us didn't understand, is great, awesome. But I have 2 sons, one of whom is a 2009 Anderson graduate, and Nate, who's a junior, both of whom have or had Mr. Rodriguez. Neither of which are scientists, but both of which love his class, are jazzed about it, and talk about it at home, which is a rare thing for teenagers. So I think that is equally, if not more important than all these other things too. So thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Very humble.
6.2, DECA National Champion, Diane Lamberbend.
Another commendation, I hope this is a little bit easier. Diana Lamberbend, may I ask that, Diana, you're here tonight, come on up. I'm going to also read a little bit about Mrs. Billman's also prepared. Anderson High School senior Diana Lamberbend was crowned the international champion for her performance in the Restaurant Management Series event at the DECA International Career Development Conference held earlier this month in Atlanta, Georgia. This is a tremendous honor for Diana, Anderson High School, and Forest Hill School District, as this is the highest place ever achieved by an Anderson High School DECA student. This was the 67th Annual International Career Development Conference. This conference is DECA's highest level of competition and encompasses career-focused competitions in finance, hospitality, and tourism, marketing, management, and entrepreneurship, drawing more than 15,000 DECA students, advisors, alumni, and affiliated business people from all 50 states and around the world. The 5-day conference is the largest high school business competition in the world. The Anderson High School students competed in a district competition in February against approximately 450 students, with top students advancing in the state level. The state competition occurred in March with students competing against more than 2,000 students and Anderson High School receiving the best chapter in the state award. The top state winners put their talents to the test during the program's first round of competition in Atlanta. Other countries attending, in addition to all 50 states, were Canada, China, Guam, Germany, and Spain. The superintendent recommends the board commend Diana Lambervin for her achievement and distinction and present her with a certificate of commendation.
Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Tepper?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, would our parents please stand?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Fruman, I participate on some regional state boards, and I was recently at a meeting, and when I mentioned the school district that I'm from, and that Diana is in our school district, they were just blown away. In the DECA world, this is rock star status. So it was they were really impressed with our school district, knowing that this student had achieved this accomplishment. And quite frankly, I didn't really know a whole lot of the background, but I mean, this is a big deal. So congratulations.
6.3, recognition of our 2013 and 14 retirees. Ms. Carnahan?
Thank you. This is a time of year when it's bittersweet for us because we have a number of folks who are not going to be with us next year in our buildings, but of course we always wish them the very best. Our retirees this year, just so you know, we're honoring 27 this evening. Not everyone could make it, but we do have 27 retirees at this point for a total of 607 years of experience. Think about that. 607 years of experience. That's an average of a little over 22 years per person here. And I can tell you several people are 36, 37, lots and lots of folks who have been with us for a very long time. And it's going to be difficult to fill their shoes. So with that, I'm going to just read a little poem. It's kind of one of my little favorites. It's 100 years from now. 100 years from now, it will not matter what my bank account was, the type of house I lived in, or the kind of car I drove. But the world may be different because I was important in the life of a child. And so for each of you tonight, as you're being recognized, I just want to remind everyone here how important these individuals have been in the lives of so many children. 607 years worth of children, think of that. So at this point, I'm going to have building principals come up and present the certificates. Mr. Broadwater, Anderson High School's first.
Good evening. Anderson High School, we have 3 retirees, one of which has showed up this evening. But first of all, Bernice Case is an administrative assistant at Anderson High School. She has been there for 19 years, and I know she is extremely excited to visit her grandchildren, and I believe it's in Florida, so I know that she has some very good plans. Our other individual who has not made it this evening is Jim Heimbaugh. Jim Heimbaugh is a science teacher. He is completing his 37th year as a teacher in Forest Hill School District, so he has the right to choose what he would like to do, whether he comes this evening or not. So if you've met Jim, Jim is, I told him he could teach another 20 years and he would just be a positive guy with a smile on his face and be able to relate to kids, and you don't see that very often. So I wish Jim all the best, and we will definitely miss him. I know he will come back and help us out with football, basketball, and baseball, so he gets to choose to do that as well. Our third retiree is Karen Bremban. Karen, if you would come up. Karen is our... Karen is our German teacher. Karen began teaching in 1991 in Kentucky, lived in Anderson Township, so was looking to get into the schools and was fortunate enough to be hired at Anderson High School in 1995, where she has taught ever since. She has done some travel between Nagel and Anderson. I can tell you that the German program is strong and alive and doing very, very well, and that is strictly because of every effort that Karen has made. She has built up a tremendous German program. When they go to competitions, they've won many, many awards, and this year, we'll brag about another Anderson High School teacher. Karen was named the UC German Teacher of the Year for this year. I know that Karen, her husband Chris is here. Can we say hello? Karen has 3 children, all of which went to Turpin, so she is a Forest Hills individual. She has 7 grandchildren, and they live in Knoxville, Nashville, and Milwaukee. So we got some traveling to do, and she is really looking forward to it. Personally, I will tell you, she is the department head for the foreign language department, and she is just an incredibly nice lady, very flexible. For somebody to teach this long and still be able to relate to kids and build a program like she does, I think speaks volumes for her and for her character. And we will definitely miss her at Anderson High School. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's that?
Peggy Johnson, Turpin High School.
I'm there.
We have one retiree who is not here tonight, June Van Dyke. She actually retired at the end of the year last year. So she is well into her retirement plans. June Van Dyke was an assistant in our Transitions to Work Life Skills classroom. Actually was at Nagel for a number of years, Turpin a number of years, and actually came over when we started the program here. And she certainly was a huge reason we could pioneer that program and develop the way we have. She was quite proud of it when she left here, did amazing work with students with disabilities in terms of building community relations, peer relationships, all those good things we try to teach young people when they grow up, and she was a huge part of that. So I'd like to congratulate June Van Dyke.
Nagel Middle School Principal, John Vandermeer.
We have 3 teachers, or 2 teachers and a counselor that are retiring this year. When we're done with those 3, that will be 101 of the over 600 years of experience. So we are really going to miss these folks. They've been a part of the Nagel fiber for a long, long time. The first person I'd like to ask to come up is Miss Connie Singler. I've had the privilege of working with Connie for the last 8 years at Nagel Middle School, very closely being the person in charge of discipline before moving into the principal role. Connie being the counselor, and as you know, with middle school students, every day is a crisis. And then being able to figure out what days are really crises and one are just having a normal day as a middle school student is a very difficult thing to do. And I've seen Connie just in so many ways just take care of kids and love kids and just really care for them. And when they're in their darkest day, being there for them or their parents and just helping them through that. When they're in their brightest days, celebrating with them and being a part of that. And truly an advocate for children, truly an advocate for our kids at Nagel, and we are going to greatly miss you.
Thank you.
The next person I'd like to ask to come up is Kathy Kessler. Kathy has been in education for 39 years. The last 30 years in the Forest Hill School District. Kathy, I've had the opportunity of working with on teams at Nagel Middle School. We're a part of teams, so as administrators, we go in and meet with the teams each week, so we get to work very closely with the teachers. And one of the most amazing things about Kathy is Kathy not only takes care of the students that are in her classroom, but all of the students on their team. At Nagel, as you know, we break it down to 120 students approximately on a team. And she's kind of like the mother hen who takes care of everybody and making sure that they are cared for. Her subject is language arts, and just the thrill and how much she enjoys teaching language arts has just been evident. She wrote in her bio that she wrote up that she's not sure if it was time to go or not, and I would concur with that she is still teaching with the same passion, with the same love for kids, and with the same love of her subject. At least from the 8 years that I've been here and way past that. And so again, we're going to miss you greatly and thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And our final person is Mike Bond. If Mike would come up. Mike has been in the Forest Hill School District for 35 years. And again, I've had the great privilege of working with Mike over the last 8 years. I was talking to his wife before things started this evening and trying to convince her that he needed to stay a little bit longer. And we weren't ready for him to go, and she said he has an appointment in Florida and he will be there next week. So that didn't work too well. You get the privilege of going in these teachers' classrooms and seeing the amazing work that these teachers do. And the thing with Mike, obviously teaching math is a very difficult subject, and you see a lot of kids that struggle understanding concepts and understanding how to do that. Never seen a person so calm. His demeanor never changes. In the 8 years at Nagel, I don't think he's ever written a student up, because he just knows how to relate with kids. And he knows how to get the best out of them. And no matter whether it was the student that was the top in his class at that point or the student that was struggling the most, they were all the same. He spent the same amount of time, and he always just continued to work until the students truly understood what he was trying to teach them. And he is a true teacher, and we're going to miss you. Thank you.
See, Randy, it's been a lot of years down there.
Yeah, I thought we had gotten rid of all of them. Mr. Bond was my teacher, I believe, in 6th grade. Was it 7th? Okay, 7th grade. And everything that John said absolutely rings true. He was one of my favorite teachers. He truly inspired me in terms of math and then in my subsequent career. But I remember exactly what was said is all of us, from those of us who loved math to those of us who didn't like math, loved going to Mr. Bond's class. So you will be missed. Yes.
Chris Flanagan, Air Elementary.
I have the pleasure of introducing 3 amazing women from Air Elementary who are leaving us this year. First up will be Nola Jacobs. It's been my absolute pleasure to get to know Nola over the last 2 years that I've been at Air. When they take a picture of a first grade teacher of what it should look like, it's Nola Jacobs. Her classroom is creative and energetic, and kids love being there, and she comes to work every day with a smile on her face and a passion for kids. And we are going to miss her deeply. It's going to be a struggle to replace her and Pat, the anchors of our first grade team. We're struggling right now to get great candidates to fill these shoes, but they're too big. And she's an amazing woman. She has a wedding to plan and a new grandchild to dawdle on. But we're going to miss her tremendously. Nola, thank you. Next up is Pat Moran. It's been an absolute pleasure again to get to know Pat. I knew I was going to have a fantastic teacher in my building my first year when she knew everything about college basketball, walking right at the door. Like, this lady's fantastic. She also has a love for northern climates, as do I, so she will be trekking off to Minnesota, which isn't quite Vermont, but it's pretty close. Again, Nola and Pat truly anchor that side of the building for us. Amazing spirit, connection with kids, a passion and an energy every single day. And you just walk through, kids are busy reading, she's pulling groups, she's everywhere, she does everything, and the building is going to be at a loss when Pat leaves. So we were going to miss her tremendously. Thanks, Pat.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
And last up is Carol Parabeck. Here we are. So AIR has kind of two sides of the hall. We have the primary side and the intermediate side. And so Pat and Nola anchor one side of the building and Carol does the other. And it's been, like I said, for the other two women, amazing to get to work with her. She has a great sense of humor. She connects with kids that have struggles. And that's the thing that I see, that she, over these last 2 years, kids who come in and don't always fit the mold that we have, Carol makes connections to those kids. And that's a talent that not a lot of educators have. And I truly appreciate that. She's a fantastic teammate. She's a no-nonsense type of lady, and we are going to miss her deeply for her wealth of knowledge, her experience, and just her professionalism. Thank you. Yeah.
Maddox Principal, Steve Traylor.
I'm going to call all three of my retirees up together and then talk about them at once. So if I could have Barb Raljak, Deb Rudolph, and Nancy Jones. So that's a good example, actually, of Barb. She has this outward appearance of this like Southern belle, but there's another side to Barb too. So I always have to have an analogy for different situations, and so to me, experienced educators are like the wily veteran baseball player, like Derek Jeter. They're always able to anticipate so well in advance, and they make something that's really, really difficult look really easy. And I can tell you that teaching kids with such diverse needs is not easy. But they make thousands of decisions every day, impacting the children, as each of them stand wondering, thinking, asking, demanding, and needing something different. And these three ladies are absolutely outstanding. Barb provides this unflappable sense of calm that John was referring to. Is you walk into a room and you would think nothing ever goes wrong. Like all the kids know exactly what to do, where to be, how to behave. Now, on that rare occasion when it doesn't, you would never know by watching Barb. She just takes it in stride, moves on. She continues to learn and to grow right up to the end, inspiring the younger teachers, the less experienced in the building. They see that example. And she really does have a southern charm and grace, although I give her a hard time about that. And she has former teammates, as well as her current teammates, that come to her for advice and seek her help. And I think that's the greatest compliment that you can pay somebody, is to go to one of your colleagues and say, hey, can I trust you? Can you help me with this? Nancy is outstanding. Nancy is the first that will tell you that learning is not always about book learning. Nancy she's strongly committed to developing social competence and caring for others. She's an incredible, incredible teacher that understands the whole child and how that impacts their learning. She started a program at Maddox that I consider to be one of our pillars called the Maddox Kids Care, which is a program that does exactly what it says. It teaches our kids to care about each other, to care about the world they live in, and to make a difference. Deb? I think one of the neatest things about Deb is that she's respected by two different groups of peers. One, the peers of excellence that are considered experts from the University of Cincinnati, the Artlet Center. They're constantly seeking Deb for help, to mentor and to tutor and to help with the new teachers as they come out. The peers in her building that seek her as a leader and around the district. I remember a few years ago, we had some teachers from one of our other buildings come, and they said, so-and-so in our building said, if you really want to know how to do it right, you need to go talk to Deb Rudolph. And I think to be respected on both levels to such a degree says a lot about Deb. She also has this unique perceptive ability to see through the smoke, we'll say, the white noise, to see what the real issue is, to be able to identify it and then attack it. These three ladies are really, really fabulous, and we're going to miss them.
Go this way.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
I should Are you going to yeah, she's still here.
Have her past you. Thank you. Thank you.
For Mercer Elementary, we're actually going to have a tag team approach. We're going to start with Damon Davis, who will be presenting, and Damon is the assistant principal at Mercer, and then Becky Johnson, who is our early childhood coordinator, will be presenting additional certificates.
Well, Mercer is excited to recognize the career of Joyce Grimmett, and I don't believe that she could be here with us this evening, but I still would like to share A couple of thoughts about her and her career. Joyce has been a paraprofessional serving our district for the past 34 years. During her career, her role has often changed from teacher to confidant, advisor, cheerleader, event planner, friend, custodian, sometimes detective, and a supervisor. Throughout her career, Joyce has had the privilege of working with children who have learning differences, key behavioral supports, and social adjustment needs. For each student, it did not matter what challenge they face. Joyce always focused on the potential she saw within each child. Even though Joyce's classroom assignments and the students she served changed many times over the years, one thing that has not changed during Joyce's career is her hard-working attitude. Always arriving early so that she is prepared for her students, her willingness to help any staff member serve children the best that they can, and most importantly, her belief that all children can learn. Joyce has changed many lives throughout her 34 years of service in the Forest Hills School District and will leave behind a lasting legacy of all the lives she has touched. We will greatly miss Joyce at Mercer and in the Forest Hills community, and we wish her much happiness and fulfillment as she begins this new chapter in her life.
Hi. We have two staff in early childhood that are retiring this year. The first one is Heather Orm. Heather couldn't be here this evening, but I still want to honor her work and all of the time that she's put in for the district. She started at Anderson 15 years ago. She was the administrative assistant with Dick West, and she did that for 12 years. She then moved to Mercer, where she's been working in the early childhood program as the administrative assistant there. And she's just been a wonderful addition to the early childhood team. I will say that I'm already starting to mourn her because she just keeps everybody in line and everybody straight. She's a master at scheduling and just keeping everybody organized and informed. She is always open to new ideas. She's always thinking out of the box, and she responds to whatever comes her way with a smile. And literally, she always has a smile. I'm going to miss her, not just because of her hard work, but because she's been a joy to work with. Some quotes from the early childhood team about Heather are that she's such a hard worker, and even when things are super stressful, of course it's never stressful for us, but even when things are super stressful, you can always count on her to say something funny. She'll be greatly missed. Another quote, Heather isn't afraid to try new things. One of her favorite sayings is, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. We hear that a lot. And so that's Heather, and I'm going to really miss her. Joan Rivard is our other staff member in early childhood that's retiring, and she's been a Forest Hills employee for 17 years. Joan's been a speech therapist in the early childhood program since coming to work in the district. I actually worked with her before and she came to Forest Hills when we were both working out in Claremont County at Wildey School. When she first moved to Cincinnati from her beloved state of Maine, she was working, like I said, out at Wildey with several other Forest Hills employees as well. Joan has been the glue holding the Mercer early childhood team together, and I just can't imagine the program without her. She has an expertise in speech and language that will be really difficult to replace. Her love for the students that she helps and her passion for those students will really be missed. Some quotes from the early childhood team about Joan. She has a kind heart and an amazing ability to connect with children. She's helped so many children over the course of her career. She will be greatly missed. Another quote, Joan was my mentor when I first started in preschool in 1999. She taught me how to play using joy, taught me how to teach using joy and play. She guided me through the ins and outs of the preschool world. Joan wrote and published a widely regarded book, which is used in many therapy settings. She's never once raised her voice, using calm and gentle praise with children. She builds up their confidence by providing them with success, however small. She makes time for her colleagues and helps with any question at any time.
It's Jim.
I'm gonna miss him.
Michelle Solstead, Summit Principal.
I would like to introduce Kathy Zapes, who is our instructional aide at Summit. Come on up. I'm going to describe Kathy in 3 words to you. I'm going to say flexible, brave, and caring. She is flexible because in the 9 years that I've been with her, working with her directly in Summit, she has been in 9 different classrooms. She has worked in so many different capacities. She has seen the intervention process change from when it was IAT to now it's the response to intervention. And she has gone with the flow on all of those. No matter what we tell her, every year she literally has a box. She says, okay, Michelle, where are you putting me this year? She moves, she goes with the flow. She is very flexible, and she has grown and changed as an educator to meet the needs of all of our students. She when I came, she was doing Soar to Success in our teacher's lounge. She has evolved and learned, MAP testing and Ames Web, progress monitoring, and 6-minute solutions in every different possible kind of opportunity and program that we can provide for our children to help them learn. So she's been very flexible. She is brave because for the last 3 or 4 years she has acted as our school crossing guard in the parking lot. And she has done that with a smile on her face, even though people are not always kind in the morning and at the end of the day. And she truly is brave because sometimes people are coming in and out quickly. But that is one of those things in that capacity. She has also shown the last word that I would use to describe her, which is caring. Typically, we have kids sign up. We have 5th and 6th graders that sign up to be a part of different crews at the beginning of the year, and they have to turn in certain paperwork and get it in on time. And Kathy invariably, every year, a couple of months after we've got our crossing guards going, we'll say, there's been this one, little boy that his parents, he wasn't able to get that paperwork in on time, but he's come by, he's learned, he really wants to be a crossing guard. Can he still do it with me? And, she really comes and advocates for that child who wants to participate and be a part of it. She is able to, in every way, I see her sometimes in the hallway, sitting with children, helping them learn, doing different things. She has worked also in our Latchkey program before and after school, gets to know the students on a personal level, and will sometimes come to me and say, I think this student is having a hard time with this, how can we help them? She truly, truly cares about children, and the children care about her. I have never seen her, get upset or escalated. She's dealing with a lot of different children in our building, and she really shows how much she cares every day. She's worked with almost every teacher in our building, and she will be greatly missed. So I am happy to honor her tonight.
Bob Buck, Wilson Elementary Principal.
Good evening. I have the honor of recognizing the Karen Parker. Secretary of Wilson. Would you like to come up? Karen Parker is the staple at Wilson Elementary. She started at Maddox Elementary 36 years ago when her current boss was in diapers, 9 months old. Since then, she has worked for 4 different principals in her time. One thing that's always impressed me about Karen is that she greets every kid at the doorway every single morning with a smile. One of our kids have even said, Mrs. Parker always has a smile, and at a reception, the student asked his parent if Mrs. Parker's had surgery to keep that smile on.
No comment.
See, it's either funny or tears, so we're just going to keep going on the phone.
There's been a lot of tears, I'm afraid.
One of the things, too,
with Karen is we have a thing that's called the Wilson Way, and she is the Wilson Way Wilson. She's outstanding. One of the former principals, Frank Forstoffel, said at her retirement reception that Karen embraces kids, loves her job, and as we printed on her plaque, she loves her job. I love my job is on her plaque. When parents come into the office, we have many issues / problems that happen, 30, 40 of them a day. And to that parent that walks in the door, Karen makes that parent feel like that's the only problem that Karen works with. So Karen will be missed. She has huge shoes that will not be filled. She's the personality of Wilson, so congratulations.
This is one of my kids.
At this time, I'm going to turn the podium over to Ray Johnson, our Director of Business Operations.
As Tammy said a little while ago, this evening really is very bittersweet. You look forward to this evening recognizing people that have put in a lot of time and effort. But it's also sad because there's people here that you're just not going to see in the same role before or again. We've heard how we've got great teachers, great clerical support staff, counselors, and so forth. The thing that you all need to understand, everybody in here needs to understand, these are great people, period. And they make coming to work here fun every day. So I can't imagine Forrest what it must have been like in his classroom, because all of you make it fun to come to work every day. I thank you for that. From the custodial staff, we have Charlie Harmon and the William Murray. The one you see on Saturday Night Live is the other one. But everybody knows him as Skip. Charlie's been at Sherwood his entire career. He'll retire with 11 years in. And he actually adjusted his retirement date. We're undertaking replacing all the carpet at Sherwood. And after he heard the experience of doing that at Air last year, he actually delayed his retirement. He didn't think it was fair to burden the next person coming in with having to oversee that. So that's just Charlie. Skip Murray, gosh, I could go on and on about Skip. Skip's been at Mercer more than half the time that Mercer's been open. But what I will tell you is Skip and I share something. We're both very hard of hearing. So I can just tell you, you can imagine what those conversations are. Shirley Stroll from food service has been at Anderson her entire career. And there are kids that come through even after 11 years and will wait until Shirley can come back to the counter to serve them. I mean, they don't want anybody else, so Shirley has to do it. Mary Sexton, who retired earlier this year, has been in all of our secondary buildings, has been at Nagel since it opened. And her biggest trait is the attention to detail she shows in the kitchen. And that's highly important in what we do. And so, you know, she's as responsible as anybody for those Clean Kitchen Awards we got over there. So, you know, I would just like to recognize all these people in terms of operational staff. And, you know, we'll be bringing bus drivers up here in a minute. This is a third of the folks that are being retired this evening. So just like to thank them for the years of service. This reporter is going to introduce the drivers. I'm going to stay up here to get a few handshakes about it. So.
What Ray neglected to tell you is what's really fun about coming to work is driving around on roads at 3 o'clock in the morning, checking to see if we need to wake up Dallas. We have 5 people that we would like to recognize from the Transportation Department tonight. 4 of them are here. I'm going to ask each of you to come up as I call your names. First is the person that is not here, and the person with the longest time in the district for our drivers is Kathy Reed. She was here for 31 years, still is here through the remainder of this year. Then we have Helen Clark, 27 years. Helen, come on up, please. Linda Lux, 26 years. Judy Overbeck, 27 years. And Mr. Ronnie Riggs, 12 years. We broke the 100-year mark. I'm going to do this a little bit differently than what I have in the past. Normally, I would recognize each individual, but when I started looking at going through what I wanted to say tonight, I recognized the fact that I would be saying the same things about each individual. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the support that these people have given me in my time here. It makes coming to work every day much easier, and when you know that you can rely on the people behind you, it just makes life a whole lot easier. I'd like to give you an idea of what a day is for a school bus driver. My wife is a teacher at another district, and she says to me on a regular basis, I'm in the classroom for 7 hours a day. How is it that a bus driver can drive for 8 hours a day? I'm still trying to get that across to her. I have explained to her that some people start work before 8:30 a.m. Okay? This group of people, when they come to work, it is somewhere between 5:30 and 6 o'clock every morning. Most of them don't finish their day until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, they have breaks through the course of the day, but that gets to be a very long day. When they arrive at work in the morning, we may be dealing with temperatures below zero, or it may be 95 degrees. It may be pouring rain, it may be snowing, it may be sleet, or we might have a nice clear morning. Dealing with those kinds of conditions, they are the people who we put our kids' lives in their hands, literally, in every kind of weather condition that you can possibly imagine. This year was a perfect example. I have to tell you that probably the best way that I can honor this group of people, anybody that knows me knows that my kids are my life. Now, granted, I've got one in college. His twin is home with us 24 hours a day. But if they were to be on a school bus, I would trust their lives in any of these people's hands any day of the week, any month of the year, without question. Another thing that we're going to do a little bit differently is Mr. Riggs has asked for an opportunity to speak to the group. Ronnie?
Folks, I realize it's out of the norm for a person being recognized to speak to you, but I asked for just a moment. And since I can read slightly faster than I can talk, I'd like to read a message that I've prepared for you. I've been associated with the Forest Hill School District for 41 years. And I'd like to just make a few remarks to say thank you for the recognition tonight. I was raised in the mountains of Tennessee. Due to my dad's employment, we moved about quite a bit. He did not make moonshine. No, he didn't. I was in 4 different elementary schools and 3 different high schools before graduating. I made a decision that I would never do that to my children. In 1973, we moved to Anderson Township for the benefits that Forest Hill Schools could give our children. All 4 of our children went to the Forest Hill School District. 2 of them went on to higher education, graduating from major universities, Brigham Young University and the University of Cincinnati. My daughter said to me one day that she would not have done well at BYU if she had not received an excellent education at Anderson High School. 13 years ago, I thought I had retired, but after a year's vacation and fun time, my wife picked up the Forest Hill Journal one day and read to me an ad. That ad said, bus drivers need at Forest Hill schools. The real message I got was, get out of here, out of my way, and go do something. I'm tired of you being home every day. While I've been a bus driver, my most immediate supervisors have been Bev Whittier, Richard Porter, and Ray Johnson. Just a side note that I didn't have in here, a few months back, one of my grandsons met and married a girl in Utah by the name of Porter. That concerned me a little bit. So I went and talked to Richard, and he assured me he didn't have any relatives in Utah. And so anyway, my most immediate supervisors was Bev and Richard and Ray Johnson. They did not always agree with me on everything, but we always agreed that they were the boss. I always thought they operated on the basis of the 3 F's: firm, friendly, and fair. All of them are the best. During my 62 years of employment, since I was 12 years old, my most enjoyable, most satisfying, most fulfilling, and most responsible job was working with the Forest Hill School District. I say most responsible because of the children I transported, and I say most enjoyable because of the people that I worked with. Now, I know that's not the Board of Education that was here in the 1980s, and probably most of you teachers that are retiring weren't here then. But I hope someone stands up here 41 years from now and shows gratitude to the Board of Education and to all of you teachers for the job that you've done through the years. So thank you, Forest Hills, for the contributions you have made to me and my family over the past 41 years. Thank you. What the heck?
Judy,
Thank you so much for
I'll tell you my quick bus driving story. I used to be a teacher, and I was responsible for duty. One of my duty periods was I was responsible for 200 students while they were eating breakfast and waiting for about 15 minutes until school started. We had buses coming at different times and so forth. And one time I rode a bus with a student who had some issue, and I remember coming back from this was almost like 25 years ago, and I remember saying, put 200 kids in front of me any time of the day. Do not put 50 kids behind me on a bus and expect me to drive and be safe, and and so my hat's off to our drivers. Our counselors, our administrative assistants, our cooks, everyone. It takes a village to raise a child, and we're raising 7,500 right now. So thank you for everything you do. At this time, I think we're going to take a brief recess for reception, unless somebody else wanted to say something. I'm sorry. Let me see.
Let's have a reception.
We're recepting in the back. Step away.
Yes.
Nobody laughs.
I know.
The words were
echoes now. You guys can all go. We promise to finish the meeting.
It's like everybody's moved up to the front, just like your turn.
I've got 15 green cards. Do I have all of them? I do have one. Any others? Josh Girth.
Are we going to open it?
Do I have 20 minutes?
Yeah,
we can. Did you want me to formally open? Is that what you said?
No, I know we're fine. It's okay. It's okay.
My comment to be brief. Unfortunately, most of the people left, but as a product of Forest Hill School District, I am really glad I stuck around for that part of it, because that, to me, is the essence of the school district. The facility discussion that you guys have had for a while now is very important, and the facilities need to be addressed. There's no doubt about that. But you cannot put a price tag on what I just witnessed or what goes on inside the walls of these schools. So for that, I say thank you to the teachers that are here, the principals that are here, the educators, the school board, the facility people, everyone in this room, and the ones that just left. It was great to be part of that, so thank you. Thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you. 8.1, a facilities update.
I think we're good. I think we're good to go there. But I would like to share a couple other things, if you don't mind. And I will be very brief. But there's a couple of people that we will hope to get on in the near future to recognize as well. But just coming up here on June the 3rd is the Anderson Chamber of Commerce, where they recognize the Citizens of the Year and then the educators and the students of the year. And this year, I'm very pleased to announce that Katie Canal of Anderson High School is our Teacher of the Year. And with that, Angela Zhao, who is a Turpin student, phenomenal student, is also recognized as a Student of the Year. Volunteers are two phenomenal people as well that are going to be recognized as volunteers, and that's Beth Davis and Jenny Nyack. All four of those individuals are phenomenal people. So again, that's coming up on June 3rd, and we'll try to get them here later. Another quick thing, just as we move along, the graduation, we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. That's coming up on June 1st, and that's at the Banks of Kentucky Center at NKU. Anderson's graduation will be at 11 o'clock, and then Turpin's will be at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. 8.2, membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Dr. Jackson?
Yes. We do this every year, of course, but I'd like to recommend that, in regards to the membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association, I request the board approve our district's continued membership with this organization.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. 9.1, board discussion. Anything further anyone cares to discuss that we haven't already discussed? No? Candidates for graduation, Anderson and Turpin both.
Mike?
Ms. Broadwater, or Mr. Broadwater and Ms. Johnson?
We would like to recommend to the Board of Education that the students who have met all the requirements set forth by the board for graduation be recommended to have that diploma conferred here on June 1st at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. respectively. We have 281 candidates at Turpin this year and
300. I thought you were going to complete my sentence.
They're getting so they complete each other's sentences. We've come a long way.
And it is recommended that the board approve the list of candidates that you have before you for graduation from the Forest Hill School District on June 1st, 2014.
So moved?
Second.
Do I have to abstain if my daughter's graduating?
I don't think so.
Oh, I can't wait to tell her that one tomorrow.
We're not hiring anyone.
Mr. Hepfer?
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hamelgarn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, and we're ready. We could do graduation tomorrow if you're ready.
They're ready too.
Yes.
11.1 and 15.3 are consent agenda items, correct?
Yes.
11.1, the Hamilton County Developmental Disabilities Contract. Ms. Ryan? Thank you.
Item 11.1 includes the attached addendum of our 2014-15 operating agreement with Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services to conduct mandated assessments for our resident children birth to age 3 who may be suspected of having disabilities. The cost is unchanged since 2003.
How many students is that for, approximately?
For this is in the rears a bit. It is for 2012-2013. They evaluated 72 children, and that's a bit higher than in past years. Generally, it's running about 40 to 50 children.
You said the cost stayed the same?
The cost has stayed the same.
Thank you.
How can that be? That's a lot of years, same cost. It just is.
This has been in place for many years. There are many districts involved in this agreement to evaluate their children. It's a strong consortium. They work like a well-oiled machine.
You were ready with that
conducting
answer,
these
Betsy.
assessments every year.
12.1, Zahner Bloser handwriting. Ms. Adams?
We're asking that you approve the Zahner Bloser handwriting program for grades K through 3. And as mentioned last time, but there's going to be a transition program from our current handwriting program to this.
Thank you. The Human Resources Report. Ms. Conahan?
I think you mean the Human Resources Encyclopedia tonight. It's
Yeah.
very large, very long. Item 13.1, item A, retirement. Of course, we just had the opportunity to recognize many of our retirees. Jim Heidenball from Anderson, 37 years. We do accept this resignation for retirement with regret, as we heard lots of stories. Item B, we see resignations. Item C is a reduction in force. I would ask that you see the exhibit. Item D, administrator employee benefits. You approved this in November, but we made some changes and wanted to have that approved again. Item E, F would be appointments on page 2. And item F is for 13-14 school year. Item G is for the 14-15 school year. And that goes through page 3, where we have change of assignment, change of salary. Continuing on, our special services appointment. You can see some of this is our Camp Kern, elementary summer school, secondary summer school, and a variety of other issues. Item K, substitute personnel, it's on page 6. Item L, reappointment of administrators, and these are all for a 2-year term. Item M would be reappointment of personnel teachers. That goes from page 7 through page 10. On page 11, we do have our non-teaching contracts that we are asking you to approve this evening. Page 12, we do have 2 non-renewals. And since the board meeting of April 28th, staffing in the district has not changed and remains at 770.94 FTE. Superintendent recommends approval of the HR report.
Thank you. Business operations, a change order for Turpin High School. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, we have a motion here to approve the change order submitted by Capital and then Glass Corporation, amount of $19,300 The change order is a result of a change of scope and work being performed by the vendor, whose truck you may have seen out here in the lift. They're actually starting tomorrow. When we did the bidding, the bids came in well under what we expected the bids to come in at, so we had the foresight to have an alternate bid to actually get more window work done here. So all the windows on this side of the building in the center section are going to be replaced over the course of the summer. They're going to start replacing, I think, a half dozen doors down the gym area tomorrow, and they'll be replacing windows on second shift here. So we'll actually be able to get 1 or 2 complete classrooms done of an evening. So there'll be no disruption to what's going on here. The hope is to minimize, there won't be any disruption during summer school as well. So the Treasurer recommends that the Board approve the change order submitted by Capital Glass and Aluminum Corporation in the amount of $19,300. 14.2, this is for information purposes, and this is something that school districts across the state are required to do. As of July 2011, Ohio Revised Code 3313.814 requires each school district board of education and each chartered non-public school governing body authority to adopt and enforce nutrition standards governing the types of food and beverages that may be sold on premises of the school and specifying the time and place each type of food and beverage may be sold. The standards specified in 3313.816 and 3313.817 are minimum standards and do not preclude the adoption of more stringent standards by the local enforcement agency. The Forest Hills School District, under the authority of Tia Strauss, Food Service Supervisor, and myself, are in compliance with Ohio Revised Code 3313.814.
Thank you. Mr. Tepfer, the 15.1 resolution accepting the amounts and rates.
And this is an annual resolution to accept the tax rates as determined by the Hamilton County Budget Commission. It's the tax rates for calendar year 2015 and the estimated dollars to be generated, which is part of that Schedule A. It's attached. This is kind of finishing or moving the process along for the 2014-15 tax budget that the board really began with a budget approval at the organizational meeting in January. The budget was submitted to the county budget commission. The budget commission looks at our general fund and our bond retirement fund budgets, determines what amounts of millage is required to collect to meet those expenditures, and this is that process. We're required to return this approval with acceptance of amounts and tax rates by May 27th. So it was recommended the board adopt the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission of Hamilton County and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Thank you. And the 5-year forecast, 15.2.
As I mentioned in my notes, we're in the process of ending a fiscal year with some unique challenges that I've shared with the board over the last month or two, with the impact of scholarships and tuition reductions in our state foundation funding. We have some other key variables that were not yet finalized. So this forecast is similar to the forecast. It is the forecast from the October 2013 the board approved. We will be ending a fiscal year, updating our financials, and have an update shortly thereafter. Formally, we'll bring another 5-year forecast to the board in October. And really, the key factor is continue to make sure our commitments to the community are held firm. That was to make the levy that was passed in March of 2012 last at least 3 years, and then a 4th year is what the last forecast showed, and that is our goal, to continue that. So with some unique challenges this year, we want to see what else we can do internally to maintain that commitment. So it's recommended the board approve the 5-year forecast and the assumptions for fiscal year 14 through 18. And the assumptions are another attachment on the item itself.
Thank you.
And then the Treasurer's Report, item 15.3, item A, we have our donations. Lots of scholarships and after-prom donations, but a little over $17,000. Again, our partners continue to make it happen. B is our statement of board accounts. No issues there. We do have 3 funds that we're waiting on some federal funding for, but that negative balance is covered by Revised Code 331520. Item C, we have our general fund receipts. We did get a TIF check, which is after this, so that's why that percentage is a little bit lower, but that'll be on the next month's report. Item D, general fund expenditures by function. And E, we have kind of our expenditures by object, and you can see, we're almost 1% higher than a 3-year average, and obviously that's due in large part to the items that we've talked about that have increased our spend this year through our state foundation funding. In item F, we have our bank reconciliations. Item G, our list of investments, and we have a decrease in our amendments to the appropriations of $139,808.22. In item I, we're asking the board to approve the board service fund expenses. So it's recommended the board approve the whole package of consent agenda items that the team submitted, items 11.1 through 15.3.
I move that we approve 11.1 through 15.3.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruin?
Yes. We have the reports to the Board of Education. First with the Business Advisory Committee report. Mr. Teffer?
We have a meeting scheduled on the 29th at 7 o'clock. We plan to talk about something new, facilities, and possibly some other items, but we're going to kind of go through some of the process that we've done formally in this setting and others. So welcome to join us if you'd like.
Thank you. Item 16.2 is the Forest Hills Foundation for Education report. I attended the meeting on May 14th. Of course, they just completed the Forest Hills 5K. It continues to be just an amazing event. It's for those of you that have been there, you know it's a great community event, and if you haven't been there, you should. Dan, were you the mascot again? He didn't win. He continues to lose in the mascot race. It's a really fun event. They continue to have about 2,000 runners. And what's amazing about the number is the number of running clubs that have grown. They've gone from at the beginning 350 running clubs are in the running clubs. Now they've got 610 kids in these running clubs. So it's doing exactly what they wanted to. It's wonderful. There's also discussion of the ACT and SAT prep sessions and further improvement to the programs. Of course, they finished what they're doing this year, but they're looking at expanding it next year. There are some further developments on the destination imagination. They're appointing building coordinators and trying to get a little consistency from one building to another. Apparently things work really well at some buildings, and others I wouldn't say they don't work as well, but they can always work a little bit better, so they're concentrating on that. The next event that's coming up is the golf outing, which is on July 19th at 1 o'clock at Legendary Run. It's a shotgun start, so that they know they'd love to welcome your foursome. Beyond that, the foundation would like you to connect your Kroger card to the Forest Hills Foundation for Education. I understand that it renews every April, so if you thought you were connected to somebody and you haven't, this is your opportunity to click on Forest Hills Foundation for Education, have some of that money go to the foundation. And that's it. Legislative liaison, Randy?
The primary is over and the legislature is back in Columbus. The key hearings right now are on the mid-biennium budget review legislation. The House has passed the bill. The Senate is still working on it. A couple key issues for education. One of them is the bill dealing with teacher evaluation and school restructuring. The other bill is could have impact on Forest Hills. The fees associated with the secondary education college credit plus program. Last month, the board gave me support to lobby Senator Jones to try and keep the legislation that had requirements in there out of law, because we need to be able to charge a modest amount for this credit, and we can run our own program. Thank you very much. We don't need the legislature to tell us exactly how to do it. That's the key activity at this point for the legislative liaison report.
And the policy committee report, Dr. Jackson, you
Yes,
want to do that?
Policy committee, again, before you in your the board docs are the policies that were at last month's reading, and this is the second reading of those policies. Although they look like quite a number of those are primarily 8 policies in regards to our spring review, which we have quite often, no, every spring. And these were brought to us by Neola. Randy and Julie sat on that committee with myself and Susan as our reporter, so to speak. And so I'm going to ask that the board approve the policies that's presented before you today.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Helmgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman, just before we move on, I just wanted to recognize Susan Monk for her work with the policy committee, because you took that over, whatever it is, 6 months ago or so, and that's a major effort. It's easy for us you've got it well organized when we walk in there. I mean, it's a challenge to go through the policies, but I really appreciate the work you put into when you stepped up to take that over. Julie, I'm sure you agree that it's a challenge, but we appreciate you making it easy for us.
Thank you very much.
She keeps us all on our toes.
Next is item 16.5, which is the Saga report. I attended the last Saga meeting, which was Substance Awareness of Greater Anderson. And what they did is they had a gentleman, I can't pronounce his last name, Deacon somebody, from Epiphany Community Service. And he presented the results of the 2013-2014 Student and Parent Survey on drug awareness. And Dallas, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was amazed at the results. I mean, if the question is, does awareness, does education work? The answer unequivocally is yes. I mean, it was amazing. The one graph that I found particularly impressive is the use over time that's being reported by our students. From 2004 to 2014, tobacco went from 16.6% to 5.8%. Alcohol, 24.6% reported use. 2014, 14.2%. And marijuana, 14% to 9.5%. Really incredible reductions, and significantly, the most significant reductions were after Saga got their grant and started their work. So it seems to be working. The one thing that's not on here that is troublesome is heroin. But that's another story. So anyhow, it looks like it's working.
And it certainly does. And again, the report itself covers the many school districts in the area. But it was shared with me, and I think it was shared with you as well, is that Forest Hills was one of the lowest usage that came back on this entire report. So I was very pleased with that. When it comes to the drug heroin, it's something that we're all working on to make sure that our students are aware. And fortunately, at this point, it is around us. There's no doubt about that. But I can say, I hope that we haven't had that problem as of yet. And hopefully we never will.
Right. We don't have a need for an executive session. Our next meeting...
We have our honored young lady would like to...
Oh, right. You said you wouldn't let me forget. You didn't. We need dates for our special meeting. We brought our calendars, right? And what we're doing is we want to meet after we get these survey results is the hope to review the results from Mr. Fox.
So what's the target week?
I don't know, Susan told us in her email. Here it is. Between May 19th and June 23rd, May 19th is certainly too early. What do you think, Dallas? When would John, the week of 2nd, maybe? Or is that too early, the 9th?
I would say maybe later the week of the 2nd might be good. That would give John a week after the memorial and to put the data together. Probably later that first week of June would be best, or early the 2nd week of June.
Okay, well, the 4th is the last day of school.
Like the 6th or the 9th? Is that what you're asking? 9th?
I would almost probably do it the week of the 9th. That's correct.
That's good.
How does June 9th work for everybody then?
Good on the 9th.
What time are we
It's a
talking
Monday.
about? Night, in the early evening, like late afternoon, early evening?
I'm good after
Early
5.
evening.
Okay.
And we can be flexible, whatever works best for everybody.
Is
Honey,
anybody,
what'd you say? You good?
I'm good after 5.
anybody bad?
Yep.
This was the easiest ever.
9th after 5, is that what I just heard?
Yeah, what do you want, 5:30 or 6? 6 is better. 6? June 9th, 6 o'clock.
Don't get to eat either way, so let's do
All right, super.
it.
Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Tepper?
Yes.
Mr. Hamelgarn?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Crewman?
Yes, thank you all.
Based on what